It's funny how some memories stay so vivid, even when you're looking back years later. I was about 7 years old when it happened. My family was on a boating trip in the Florida Keys, and the day started out like any other adventure. The sun was shining, the water sparkled, and I remember standing at the front of our boat, the salty rose, feeling the wind whip through my hair. It was a perfect day, or so it seemed. I was wearing my old life jacket, the one I never bothered to buckle properly, because it felt too tight. In hindsight, that was a big mistake. I was so excited to explore the reef. My dad was steering the boat, and my mom was busy making sure everything was in place. I leaned over the railing, trying to spot fish, my imagination running wild with thoughts of colorful corals and hidden treasures. Then the boat hit a big wave, and I lost my balance. In an instant, I was falling into the cold water. The life jacket, unbuckled and too loose, slipped off me. I remember the shock of the cold and the way everything went quiet as I sank below the surface. The scariest part was seeing the propeller of our boat slicing through the water near me. It missed me by a hair, but it destroyed my life jacket, leaving me with just a small piece of foam. The panic set in as I surfaced. I remember kicking my legs, trying to stay above water. The boat was drifting away, and I could hear my parents shouting, but they sounded so far off. It was terrifying. I grabbed onto the piece of foam from the life jacket, holding it like a lifeline. The waves were so big, they felt like giant hands trying to pull me under. I tried to float on my back, like my dad had taught me, but the waves kept splashing over my face. It felt like hours, but I had no sense of time. I was just a little kid, cold and scared in the middle of a huge ocean. The sun started to set, and the water got even darker. That's when the fear really set in. The night was the worst. It felt like the ocean went on forever, and I was just a tiny speck. I heard all kinds of strange noises, splashes, growls, and what I thought were whispers. Looking back, I realize it was probably just my mind playing tricks on me, but at the time I was convinced there were monsters in the water. I saw shadows in the waves, shapes that looked like sharks or dolphins, but I couldn't be sure. My imagination was running wild with fear. I clung to that piece of foam, trying to stay awake, but exhaustion was taking over. I remember seeing lights in the distance, thinking they were rescue boats, but they would disappear. I was so tired and scared, and it felt like I was drifting for days. In reality, it was about 36 hours, but I didn't know that then. Time felt different, stretched out by terror and cold. Just when I thought I couldn't hold on any longer, the sun started to rise. The morning light made everything a little less scary. I remember feeling a sliver of hope as I floated there, completely drained. Then I heard it. A distant engine. My heart leaped, and I tried to see where it was coming from. A small boat was heading my way. As it got closer, I saw people on board a tiny boat. They were shouting, but I couldn't understand them. 2 men jumped into the water and swam to me. They lifted me onto their boat, wrapping me in a blanket. I was so tired, I could barely stay awake. The people on the boat were speaking a language I didn't understand, but they looked worried and kind. It turned out the people who rescued me were Haitian refugees. They were trying to reach America in this old, rickety boat. The woman who took care of me, Marie, spoke a little English. She explained that they were escaping from something bad in their country, hoping for a better life. They had been at sea for days, with barely any food or water. I didn't fully grasp their situation at the time, but I remember feeling safe with them. They shared their meal or food and tried to keep me warm. Even though they were in a tough spot themselves, they had stopped to save a lost little girl. That stuck with me. They were kind and brave, even though they had so little. Later that morning, a Coast Guard boat found us. I still remember the mix of fear and relief on the refugees' faces. They knew they might get into trouble, but they were more worried about me. As the Coast Guard boat came closer, I spotted my parents on the deck. They were frantic, waving and calling my name. I felt a huge wave of relief wash over me. They had found me. The Coast Guard crew brought us all on board. My parents hugged me so tight I thought they'd never let go. They were crying, and I was crying too. It was a mix of so many emotions: fear, relief, and gratitude. My parents kept thanking the refugees, trying to communicate their thanks through hugs and tears. When we got back to shore, things got complicated. The Coast Guard detained the refugees. They explained to my parents that the Haitians would likely be deported because they didn't enter the country properly. I didn't fully understand it at the time, but I knew it wasn't good. The people who had saved my life were being taken away, and there was nothing we could do. My parents tried to help them, but the rules were strict. The last I saw of the refugees, they were being led away by officials. I felt so sad and guilty. They had risked everything to save me, and now they were in trouble because of it. It was a harsh lesson about how unfair the world can be. Looking back, that experience changed me. I was just a kid, but I learned a lot about courage and kindness. The Haitian refugees had nothing and were facing an uncertain future, but they didn't hesitate to help me. It taught me that sometimes the people who need help the most are the ones who help others the most. I never forgot those people. They were like an unexpected family who showed up in the scariest moment of my life. Even now, years later, I think about them and wonder what happened to them. That day on the ocean taught me about the power of compassion and the importance of helping others, no matter what. And it's a lesson I carry with me every day.